One thing that you mentioned earlier was obviously people having a poor microbiome, and I think one thing that we see from the overall population that obviously there's quite a lot of confusion, and because nutrition is very subjective, and obviously people seem to be eating what they assume might be good for them. However, when we look at consumption, especially in the West, the States, the UK, Australia, there isn't food scarcity. There's like an abundance of very cheap, easily accessible, and also very addictive foods. And I know from past experience that people get sucked into this because for instance, a donut might be in their head more satiating than a food platter, a fruit platter, or like a salad, for instance. And I think there's a lot of set up from like the general the food and the food industry to kind of set us up to fail, because some of these foods are like crack to a lot of people, and it can be hard for people to kind of snap out of that, especially when you can get like donuts, for instance, for like a dollar in comparison to like healthy blueberries and foods like that for $5 or $6. And I think it can be hard for a lot of people.
For sure. We're talking here about it's a major um, it's a major amount of work people have to go through, not just to learn the nutritional science to eat better, but also to learn about the nature of addiction, how to resolve that, and to have robust emotional health, so you can be able to eat a diet that's so healthy in a world where everybody is trying to sabotage you and look at you unfavorable because you're eating healthier than they are. So we need to. So I don't. So for example, at my health retreat in San Diego, we're of course doing cooking classes and lectures about the science of eating right, but we also spend a lot of effort teaching people how to see the world in a way to be happier, to be less stressed out, and to have good emotional health. Because you need to have robust emotional health to be able to be different from others and be comfortable in your own skin, which is a very important. So food is highly addicting. And most people who are addicted to cocaine and other substances don't really resolve their addiction. They just go from cocaine to sugar to donuts. They go from one addiction to the other. They go from alcohol to sweets. They use food as a secondary addictive replacement, and it leads to obviously tremendous human tragedy from the way people are eating today. And that's you and I maybe are considered radical by most conventional people because we eat so healthfully, and we place such an important emphasis on eating right to control our health destiny and to have a healthier lifespan and a lifespan with more physical capacity, without having the fear of disease, and with a full mental faculties as we age, to maintain for a longer, better life. Because many people listening think, oh well, I'd rather just enjoy my life more and eat what I feel like eating. And if I die younger, so I die younger. But that they don't realize they don't just die younger. They suffer for many years with all types of maladies that are really annoying, and they lose their mental function. And even if they're alive, they're not going to be too happy being in poor health. And the myth is that they think they're enjoying their life more because they're eating unhealthfully. And the facts is that your taste buds adjust to what you get used to eating, and you learn, and we teach, of course, delicious recipes to make the food taste great anyway. And we don't feel that we're deprived or losing pleasure of eating to be able to live this healthfully. So the question is, even if you're on a vegan diet, are you eating too much grain? Are you eating processed foods? Are you eating too much salt? Are you putting too much oil on it? Are you eating enough greens? Are you eating a large salad every day? Are you chewing that salad really well to get those protective nutrients? And is your salad dressing healthy, made with nuts and seeds and not oils? So we're trying to really have more precision in our nutritional recommendations, exactly what they're supposed to be eating, how much, what types of foods. And so it's not just because we know that there's many people on plant-based diets that are not getting the type of nutritional benefits that we expect them to see because their dietary portfolio is still not healthy enough.
You mentioned chewing, so I'm guessing chewing. The more you chew, the more you're breaking it down in your mouth, the more nutrients you're actually going to get, or there's going to be more health benefits to chewing more.
Yes, because people they're raised on eating eggs and bread and meat where they don't have to chew it that well, and they're not raised on eating vegetables and raw and carrots and raw broccoli.
Mm.
And so, and pomegranate arrows and things. So yes, and even onion. In other words, what I'm saying right now is that most people only digest about 10% of the nutrients in their salad because they don't break open every cell. And if you really focus and are mindful of how well you chew it to a liquid, preventing swallowing until it's more liquefied, you can increase your absorption of nutrients by almost 90%, increased absorption with better chewing. And that in the cell wall of the plant, particularly of the cruciferous vegetable, we're talking about arugula, bok choy, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, in any case, in the cell wall of these vegetables is an enzyme called myrosinase that is heat sensitive. If you cook the vegetable, it would deactivate the enzyme. So by eating it raw and chewing it well, you break open the packets that house the enzyme, and it mixes with the other nutrients in the cell to form the ITCs, the isothiocyanates, are formed in your mouth. So the anti-cancer nutrients are formed in your mouth and in proportion to how well you chew, right? So when you're chewing, you're forming the ITCs in your mouth and you're mixing it with bacteria from your mouth and with saliva. And the combination, that forms not only more ITCs to prevent cancer, but more nitric oxide and more endothelial growth factors that help the gut repair itself and replenish itself. So yes, there's a lot of you get enhanced nutritional benefits when you chew vegetables very, very well. And so we're trying, and people get reflux esophagitis, they get indigestion because they eat too much, they overeat, and they don't chew well enough. But it's the combination of chewing better, eating the right foods, and not overeating till you're full, of course, all help heal the gut wall and give you a lot of beneficial health benefits.
Absolutely. And I think as you just mentioned as well with the overeating, especially in today's age, like in comparison to 200 years ago or even just 100 years ago, we can be eating double the amount of calories than, especially in like the westernized populations, than we could have like 100 years ago. We're able to consume such a large amount of calories in such a small portion of food in comparison. And I think obviously this, like we see like there's a strong line as well of kind of like, since we've had ultra processed foods, since we've had like a lot of like very refined, salts and sugars, obviously there's been a rise in like heart disease, diabetes, strokes, and like obesity and many other lifestyle factors that obviously play a role in our daily daily health conditions. And we're just kind of, I think we have a lot of self-destructive behaviors now, and I would shoot like, but it's just become normalized in every day. Like you go anywhere and there's advertisement for fast food, alcohol, vapes, cigarettes, and it's become so normalized these days that, like as you said earlier, that like us eating healthy seems so radical. Like yes. a lot of my friends in the past, they're just kind of like, hey, why are you eating a salad or a Buddha bowl or something like that? However, they've got a vape hanging out of their mouth, eating a cheeseburger. But it's been so normalized by society that it just seems like a normal thing to be doing. But I don't think people realize that, that health is slowly being, triggered and it's going downhill.
Yes, it's the question is, why would a person eat things that are not in their best interest for their long-term health? Why would we self-destruct? Why would we create disease? Why would we shorten our life with what we eat? And the answer is because these things are highly addicting, and you lose control. Your cerebral brain is no longer in control. Your primitive brain, which likes the dope, which likes the overstimulation, starts to affect your decision making. So you don't become the best decision maker for your own best interests. And they're getting so much publicity and support to that way of living, and people actually think it's healthy now to be fat or to be overweight. So what I'm saying here is that body fat is unhealthy, and the more body fat you have, the more insulin resistant you become, and the more estrogen production, the more pro-inflammatory substances, and the higher risk of inflammation and infection and cancer. And so we are shortening our lifespan with the excess consumption of calories. But if your diet is nutritionally deficient, it becomes almost impossible to resist the desire to overeat. And we have people that are ubiquitously deficient in micronutrients and phytochemicals. That's what happens with a nutritarian diet. It doesn't guarantee a person's going to eat the right amount of food, but it makes it so when they're eating so healthfully, they're not going to have unrelenting, strong cravings that makes them have to overeat. So now you can more comfortably eat the right amount of calories. And you referred to earlier the fact that populations today, certainly in the United States, people are eating double the amount of calories that more primitive populations had eaten through most of human history. If we look at most primitive populations, they eat about 1,500 calories a day for the average, size human. And in America today, we're eating more than 3,000 calories a day. And we have a population that's more than 90% of people are overweight. Actually, it's 89% of people have a BMI above 23. Maximum lifespan probably occurs with BMIs between 18 and 21 for a female and 19 and 22 for a male. We have 89% of the people with a BMI above 23. So we're talking here about almost everybody is overweight. And the 10% of people that aren't overweight with a lower BMI, most of those people are people who smoke cigarettes or people who have some medical conditions that's keeping them thinner. If they were healthy, they'd be overweight eating American food. It's only 2.4% of Americans that are a normal weight because they eat healthfully and they eat somewhat healthfully and exercise regularly. The point is that almost everybody is unhealthy, and they've been indoctrinated and raised in a social network where we're brainwashing people to establish certain norms. And the norms are, going after praise and having people like you for superficial things and using food as recreation. Your primary recreation becomes eating dangerous foods, and you can become ostracized from your social network and feel not good about yourself because the people aren't going to respect and please you and support you when you try to live healthfully. You're supported for being more like them, not more unlike them. So the norm has shifted to an unhealthy behavior, to unhealthy living, which is somewhat, we're working hard to reverse that, and change happens slowly, and more people are embracing healthier living, but it's still a very slow process.